So hi everyone, welcome back for the second tutorial using VisualRM for RuneMate, a bot client for old school Runescape. Today I had the idea to create a simple bot, a simple woodcutting bot, not a new forestry woodcutting, but the regular old school woodcutting. Let's go through it step by step. I didn't prepare anything, so we'll see what happens and see what I can think about. So to start any bot, we'll start with using a start node. So let's put it in the canvas, select old school RS, and let's start with the default loop delay of around this. For now, it is just arbitrary. We'll look what these values are. It's just every time the logic loop will end, it will delay somewhere between this time, so between 800 and 1500 milliseconds before it would start again. We might have to adjust this based on what we see, what will happen in game, because some interactions, some delays in game might mess up our logic. We'll see what happens. So the first thing I'd like to do is just go chop a tree. We're going to chop this tree. What we will need to do is first check if there is a tree. So we'll add a game object condition and check if there is a tree. So like we discussed in the previous tutorial, let me hide this one for a sec. Let's add a variable for the tree. So for organization reasons, I will add some categories to the name itself. So tree game object, and we'll give it the value tree. Let's add the game object and save it. And then we can select it in the game object condition. We will connect the first node, and now the game will check, is there a tree? If there is a tree, we want to interact with it. So we add an interaction node. The entity type we want to interact with is game object. Entity name is tree game object. We'll connect it, and let's see what happens. So let me focus this again. Let's press play. I will enable visual debugging to see what happens. As you can see, it will just continue clicking the tree. It will continue clicking the next tree, like that. This is very hyperactive playstyle, so let's do something about that. So what I want to do is, we only want to check if there is a tree, or we only want to interact with it, that's how you choose it, if the player is not animating or not moving. So let's look for a player node. So let's search the player condition. And if the player condition is moving, for example, or is animating, let's see what I else said. Then we do nothing. If he's standing still, we can look for it again. Okay, let's see what happens now. So if it is animating, it's not doing anything, but we see while it's moving, it's still trying to click it again. There will be a new node where both animating and moving is included, because this is a very common interaction. So the player, another player node. You can find in the conditions as well if you want. Let's add it. So if the player is moving, we do nothing. If it is animating, we do nothing. And if neither of those is true, we will look for the game object and do an interaction. So you see the bot clicks once, it delays, bot clicks once, and it delays. You might see some things happen. For example, if we reduce the loop delay, it might double click before anything happens. You see, this is what I meant before. We have to look for the right values for our actions to see if the bot doesn't click too often. But this can also be used as some distinguishing feature to distinguish you from the real bots, as you sometimes do click twice on a tree. All right, let's pause the bot and go back to the start. Let me just... So yeah, I was just thinking, for the next step, let's add a condition which is necessary for chopping trees, is that we will have an X. So we can only chop trees if we have an X. Let me just bang this one. If I now press the play button, the bot will look for a tree, which will click the tree, and we'll just continue clicking the tree. So what do we need to check for is, do we have an X in the inventory? Or in the... Let's just keep this simple and check if it is in the equipment tab. So we'll add an equipment condition and check if any of these is true. So we check if it contains any of, and for the values we have to add an X. So let me hide this one again. So X sprite, and I could add a rune X, or I could choose to support any X and do a space X. I'll do it like this, so there's a space in front of it and an X after it. We'll assign the type sprite item because both items in the inventory and items in the equipment tab are called sprites. Let's save this one. In our equipment condition, we'll do contain any of the X sprites. Let's add it in front of here. If we have an X, we can continue with our regular flow. If we don't have an X, what we need to do is we need to check, first of all, do we have an X in the inventory? I know you can chop trees with an X in the inventory, but just for illustration, we'll add it. So inventory. So in failure, we'll check if the inventory contains any of the X sprites. And then if we have one in the inventory, we would like to interact with it. And how do we interact? So we interact with the inventory. We can select the X sprite. Oh, sorry, I have to trace back a little bit. So because we chose our X sprite to be a partial name matching, space and X, so any item matching or having in its name space X, we need to select the partial name matching here, here, as well as here. And what we want to do, we want to wield it. So we want to add a new variable, wield action, and the value will be wield. We'll select it as action, save it, so now we have 3 variables, and we select it here, wield. What if we don't have an X? Let's first check everything we've done before. So if we don't have one in the inventory, we will pause the game. Indefinite means pause. If you want to add a breaking time, you can, for example, say it will pause for a few seconds. But for now, we'll do indefinite and see what happens. So now we want to check if our logic works. If I open up the old school tab, so now I don't have an X in my inventory, in my equipment. I don't have one in the inventory, so the bot should pause. Okay, let's play. Okay, it paused. Let's log back in. I just play, it will log in automatically. Pause before it will log out again. So let's get our X. I'll get my rune X. To avoid it currently logging out again, I will just disconnect this one. But normally, well, let's keep it in. Let's trust the system. Normally, it shouldn't log out. It just should just equip the X and continue chopping. Okay, so let's go. It will wield the X, and now it will go chopping, just like we did before. Okay, let's get things a little bit more complicated. So let's remove the X again. We'll put the X back in the bank. Now, what if we don't have an X? Let's move this a little bit down. We want to grab one from the bank. This is quite the fun part, I think. So let's go for the bank. Oh, that's a bank condition. Let's keep it simple. You can first check if things are in the bank, but let's just go for if there's a failure type, we do a bank withdrawal action. All of, this is the simplest way to do something. So we want to draw all of the following items, and we just want to withdraw an X with partial name matching. Let's see what happens. Disable close bank means that the bank keeps open after finishing this node. The standard behavior is after it has finished withdrawing everything you specify, it will close the bank. But if you want to have a sequence of different actions within the bank, you can select the disable close bank. So we don't have an X in the equipment, we don't have an X in the inventory. Let's see what happens now. So I'll zoom a little bit out. So it saw we have to bank. It tries to find the closest bank. So it withdrew 2 X's. So there might be some bug in there as it went too fast. And it took the bronze X, which is also an X. If you want to specify it for using rune X's, you have to assign the variable rune X. If you want to do more complicated withdrawal actions, we can use the VisualRM preset. Let me grab some items, for example, this and this and this. So this is our equipment. If we select the VisualRM preset and you hover over the withdraw combo box, you can add a new preset. You specify it here. Yeah, okay, sorry. So we add this as our X preset and we save it. We can select it here. So in our X preset, we can select if you click the load inventory, it will update everything in your inventory right now. Let's say we just want, every time we go woodcutting, we want a rune X and we want a pineapple pizza. And then you save it, you hit the plus button, so your preset is saved, our X preset. And now I will just remove any of these. And from our equipment, I will also remove the X. Let's say that's our inventory. We picked up all of these items and we want to now go continue chopping trees. Let's see what happens. So it tries to bank again, removes everything we don't need. We'll add a rune X, we'll add a pineapple, and we can continue our chopping journey. Sometimes it is advisable to not just go directly into a bank withdrawal action. It might work, it might not work. You'll have to, that's why development testing is there. But you might add a bank condition and just is nearby. Is there a bank nearby? If there's success, you can withdraw. And if it is not, we need to go to the bank. So we can add a traversal action. Add a traversal action and select to nearest bank. If the bank is supported by the RuneMate web, the web is the navigation plan made by RuneMate or supported by RuneMate, or we can go to coordinates and then you have to select coordinates. If you want to acquire coordinates, you want to go to a specific location first. You can go to that location and then there are 2 options. Either let's go back to the variables. Let me get this out of the way. Bank location variable. We'll select the coordinate variable type and you can use the get button here to get it. Or you can type the numbers. So we can get and then save it. So we have our bank location. We can traverse to the bank location. You can choose the exact location, or if you want to really end up on that tile, or you can select, or you can deselect it to just approach it. Traversal styles, we have all of these. Let's just stick with webfill. Webfill means it supports both the navigation web by RuneMate. It supports the region method. The region method is that it can traverse objects, or it accounts for objects within the loaded region. And Brazenhead, which is just a line of sight, it will just go to that coordinate as if there's nothing in its way. Custom web is currently not really advised to use. Custom web can be useful if you have your own web navigation loaded, which is a very advanced feature. And the viewport means it will click in the viewport rather than on the minimap. And the viewport means it's just the playing field. So let's select webfill. And for example, let's try this again. Let's remove our X and our pineapple. I think it will just say that there is a nearby bank, so we can't really test this right now. So yeah, there's a nearby bank, and it will find. But these traversal conditions and actions can be used for every purpose. For example, if you need to go to a certain place to chop your trees, you can use this first. Another way to acquire coordinates, for example, if you're not interested to the coordinate you're located on, but the coordinate of, for example, this ladder, you can, I'll put this on the top, you can select the dev kit. So on the right bottom corner, we can select dev kit, and this is the development toolkit that will load. It will get you all the information of entities, events, and everything you need. So for example, I want to know where this ladder is. I can select the game objects, which loads all the game objects near me, and there's the ladder. I don't know if we have our, yes, if you enable the overlay, it will also highlight your object of interest. For example, if you want to know where this bench is, we want to use this bench. And this will come in handy later. Okay, but let's quit out of this. Let's continue with our bot. So this is not very organized, I just put some nodes. So if we want to spice up some of our conditions, we need to add some more nodes. For example, if I want to chop another kind of tree at a certain amount of empty spots, we need to do some reorganizing. So suppose I want to chop oak trees if we have 15 or 20 inventory slots left. Then we can do, for example, an inventory condition. We'll add an inventory condition. We'll check has empty slots. And then we, let's say, has less than a number of empty slots. And we have to add a number. For example, let's put this out of the way. 20, and add the value 20, and select the condition, the variable type as a number. Let's save it and select it here. So if we have less than 20 empty slots, we will do something else. So if we're not animating, let's check this. So if we have more, so if this condition fails, we will chop logs, like it should do now, because we have more than 20 slots left. If we have 20 slots left, we will do, for example, the oak tree chopping. To do that, we add a new variable, oak tree game object. Oak tree, let's check if it's the exact same writing. So oak tree is capital O and a normal T. Select it as a game object, and we'll add the variable oak tree. Then we will insert a game object condition, drag the success. So if we have less than 20 empty slots, we'll chop the oak tree, or we'll check if there is an oak tree. If there is an oak tree available, we'll add the interaction node, success. So again, game object, oak tree game object and no action selected, but we could add an action. So what is the action? For example, if you have a game object with multiple actions and you want to specify one, you can select a specific action here. So chop down, action, chop down. Again, capital C and normal letter D. And we'll select as an action, save it, and now we'll select the chop down action here, and we might as well add it to the first one as well. In this case, it doesn't matter. So let's see what happens. Let's zoom in on our logic. We still have our X in our equipment. Chop the tree, chop the tree, chop the tree. We should have taken another value because this will take a while. So to chop the tree, one more. And now it will look for the closest oak tree, which in this case is here, and it will start chopping the oak tree. You saw that there's sometimes some delay, so let's change out our loop delay a little bit lower, like this. I would just suggest to always do it above 600 milliseconds. So now it will chop oaks. And let's do another one. So failure this. For oak tree, we'll do this. Let's add another inventory condition. So has less than empty slots. And now let's say 10. Use it as a number, save the number, has less than 10. So if there are more than 10, if they're between 20 and 10, it will chop oaks. And otherwise, we might add a maple tree game object, maple, so we need to capitalize maple tree, add it as a game object, we save it. So if there is less than 10, we select the maple tree game object. We can also specify the actions here if you want to look for specific game objects. We do have an action, we can add it here. And then for our interactions, we'll select the game object, maple tree, game object, and our chop down action. You could do a, for example, if we don't have a maple tree left, we could have it look for our oak tree. And if there's no oak tree, we can just look for the original tree. So now it will drop down the conditions to look for any tree. And let's put this here and put this one here. So this now looks a little bit more organized. So again, let's go over everything we've done. If we contain an X, if we don't contain an X, we check if our inventory contains an X. If it does, we equip the X. If it does not, we go to the bank and withdraw the X. So if we have an X and the player is moving, we do nothing. If the player is not moving and the player is animating, we do nothing. Because that means he's chopping a tree or walking to a tree. If it does neither of that, we check our makeshift condition. For example, if you have less than 20 slots, we do a second condition check. If we have less than 10 slots, We go check if there is a maple tree. If there is a maple tree, we chop the maple tree. If there's no maple tree, we chop the oak tree. If there's no oak tree, we chop a regular tree. And depending on these conditions, we first go to another one. So let's move a little bit back to the bank. Let's drop some of these items. And let's see what it does. So we chop the tree. One more, so now we have 10. Then we chop the oak tree. So we have less than 10. It now starts chopping maple trees. So the tree is down, and it's still looking for maple trees, even if our inventory is full. So let's do something about it. How do we get this bot self-sustained? Well, for example, you could do bank all. And we'll have to add another condition. Let's do it all the way on the top because it's one of the primary conditions. If our inventory is full, we need to do something else. Inventory condition is full. Let's put our start node to the inventory condition. If it is not full, we can do whatever we want. And if it is full, we will, for example, go to the bank deposit action, deposit all, except, I don't know if VisualRM preset is, no, it's not supported. For example, all except our pineapple pizza, pizza sprite. I'll do a partial name as space pizza, and that sprite item. Let's save the variable and then deposit all except our pizza with a partial name matching and see what happens. So now it will first check if it is full. You can add a value true or false. If you want to invert it for logic reasons, let's just put it as true. Add the value true as a boolean. Boolean means true or false. Save it. And you can select it, but it doesn't matter right here. The default value is true. Let's see what happens. So inventory is full. Let's go to the bank. You see it's spam clicking. Don't do anything about that. It will deposit all except the pineapple pizza and continue again. So this concludes our first tutorial using VisualRM, creating a simple woodcutting bot where we go over some of the features of VisualRM. All right, so have fun, check out the system yourself, and let me know if you need anything, need help, or need new nodes, or encounter any bugs. All right, have fun.